So we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 12:04. First of all, welcome to the Fearless Authenticity webcast. We're so happy to have you here, and thanks for joining us. Today, the focus of our topic is going to be fearless authenticity and sports and beyond. Our guests today include Marc Marc Jackson, and Rick Eber, who should be joining us shortly. All three are former professional athletes and have gone on to establish successful careers since retiring. What I encourage you to do is engage with us in the chat room, ask questions, share comments. Please be a part of this. Given that, I'd like to turn it over to our doctors of authenticity, Dr. Sherri Maloof and Dr. Jim Smith Jr. Take it away.
Take it, Sin. Sherri, good to see you again. You ready? Another journey? All set?
Absolutely, Jim. It's you know, we always have fun.
All right. Something tells me this is going to be even more fun. The first question I have for both of you, can you still play?
I don't know about Marcus, but unfortunately, I'm recovering from 2 herniated discs about a month ago, so I'm barely walking. So I'm done.
All right. Mark, are you still in the rim? You still in the rim?
Yeah, I'm still here. I don't know if you can see me. Can you hear me?
Are you still in the rim?
Yeah, if you talk about the toilet rim, I've had 3 knee surgeries, and just last year, I think I was just telling Mark, I had a total hip replacement, which I've fully healed from, but my basketball days are over, brother.
All right. For the few people who don't know you as well as some others, I'd like for both of you to talk about what you're currently doing and what you used to do when you were playing sports. So a combination of your past and your present. And I see that Rick joined us. So why don't you, Marcus, why don't you start off your past and what you're doing now?
So I think my past really marries well with what I do now. Those who know me know, I grew up homeless in the projects, and saw so much growing up, and always was trying to figure out a way to escape poverty. And so much violence. I saw my uncle was killed in front of me at the age of 10. And my mom, in order to save her kids, she had us go live with our grandmother, who lived in a rural part of down south. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, Decatur, to be more specific. And so growing up, and also I should mention that when I was born, the doctor told my mom that I would never play sports or ever be able to walk because I had this degenerative situation with my legs. And because we were homeless, my mom didn't have medical insurance. And so the doctor told my mom that I would never have the capabilities to play sports or walk properly. And anyone who sees me today walking, I have a little bit of a gait when I walk. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up with this idea that I was never going to let someone tell me what I couldn't do. And so I started playing sports at 12. I met my first mentor and was able to do pretty well in high school, and went to college and played sports for HBCU. Got Division II Player of the Year and was invited to go to the Denver Nuggets camp. I was there for about 3 or 4 months before getting injured for the first time, and got cut from the team and didn't stop playing. and ended up playing about 6 years overseas, 2 years in Sweden, 2 years in Finland, a year in Argentina, and a year in Israel.
Wow.
And I think along the path, I did see Mark and I kind of crossed paths. I don't think he remembers, but he was playing, I forget, either it was a team in Israel or Greece. I saw him playing in a Euro Cup game. This is over 20 years ago. I never knew anything about Mark. And then Mark and I kind of connected again when we connected when I came here to Philly a couple years ago. We actually ended up passing each other in the gym where we work out at, and he was in the mirror shaving. And he looked up at me, and I said, "Yo!" And so and this gym happened over like the last 12 months, right?
Yes.
So this is how small the world is.
It is.
But that leads me to where I am today. I'm the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters. We've been doing this work in one-on-one mentoring with at-risk kids for over 100 years. And so my sports background has helped me, I believe, in order to help these young people in terms of their challenges, in terms of how do we face failure. And so that has my sports and academic career has really influenced how I lead this organization.
Thank you. Thank you. And Rick, you just joined us. The first question I asked Mark and Marcus was, can you still play?
Can you still play? I can hardly walk.
Okay. Okay. Well, the first question we're answering, Sherri and I want to know about your athletic past and your current practice. So Marcus answered it. Marc Jackson, how about you, your athletic past and where you are today?
Thank you, Jim. For me, similar to Marcus, you know, I grew up in the heart of North Philadelphia, born and raised in Temple University Hospital. I actually was raised on Temple's campus. But similar to Marcus, very difficult upbringing, witnessed a lot of violence. I'm a product of a drug home where my mother and my stepfather were drug addicts. You know, didn't have no heat and no running water my entire childhood. Used to get water from the fire hydrant at 4 o'clock in the morning before my friends woke up. And then when I got caught, they made fun of me, but that's part of it. Was unable to take a bath or a shower. The only time I was able to bathe was in the summertime when the pools opened up. Wow. So that led to me to playing basketball, played a lot of inner city basketball, ended up playing high school basketball, playing for Temple, going to college to play for Temple. Got a lot of accolades, player of the year, stuff like that. Drafted second round by the Golden State Warriors. Then from there, ended up playing a lot in Europe. I played 8 years in the NBA, 7 years in Europe. Played in Greece, Spain, Russia, Turkey. Wouldn't give it up for the world. Had a very successful season. Was able to play majority of my career injury-free. Then after that, got called in to do TV for the 76ers. They asked me would I be interested. I'm like, never did it before. They're like, come try it. Like, all right. And I've been doing that ever since. Been doing it NBA pre and post analyst for the 76ers, as well as NCAA on CBS college basketball analyst. Been doing that since the day I retired. So that's kind of where I am now. Also have a nonprofit basketball program called Jacko 25, where we mentor kids through basketball. I have about 60 kids in my program. Been doing that for 10 years. Love it. I'm engaged. Started it in Tampa, Florida, before I moved back to Philadelphia, and been doing it ever since. And so I do TV for the 76ers, TV for college basketball, but majority of my time, other than my family, is being involved with children, not just at risk youth, but children from all walks of life, mentoring them through the game of basketball.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And Rick, NFL, football, can you tell us a little bit about your football past, as well as what are you doing these days? And then dive into authenticity in athletics. And I'm sure Sherri has a number of questions, and so do I.
Well, thank you, Jim and Sherri, for having me and giving me some time to catch up. I'm a little late. Technically, I had a challenge, but you know, listening to Marcus and Mark, I can identify with a lot of stuff they said about their past being successful in athletics. I played professional football for 8 years, NFL, Canada, and places, and coached, and it was an important part of my life. You know, I'm a PPI trainer, and you know, I'd say that PPI might have helped me more than who I am today and being authentic than I did the NFL. And many things in my life, from my playing career with Atlanta, San Diego Chargers, and so forth. You know, I was a young man. I was just learning. I was just becoming authentic at that time, if you want to use that word, growing in authenticity. And I'm 75 today, and I've had a lot of events in my life. Not just a great football career, great because I got to meet a lot of wonderful people and grow, but many events along my life have been challenging to me. And football was always a bearing, like Mark and Marcus, that is something I've relied upon to make it through my life in many ways and to learn and to grow. And today, you know, I too have been involved in a charity program called Goals for Life at-risk kids, where we get NFL players to go in front of kids in at-risk communities and help them set goals for life and help them change and find direction. And it's a structured program, just like the structure I needed when I was a young man to grow up and, you know, in theme here, find out who I was and learn. And so I'm retired today. I've been the leader in the NFL retired union and led stuff with concussions for our chapters here in Los Angeles. And I'm retired mostly now. And the only thing I do, my last comment would be, when I got into the world of training and so forth, I was looking for something to replace football. And standing in front of a group of people, teaching influence in a real environment is the closest thing I found to that.
That's awesome.
And that's what I do today when I'm retired.
Thank you. Sherri, two things. One, how did you find Rick for influence? And number two, can you tell us a little bit about the conversation that you and Rick had about authenticity, social, personal? What was that like?
Well, Rick's been a positive parent influence trainer for quite a number of years. Rick, how long have you been doing it for?
I'm saying it's pushing 20.
Yeah. So Rick has worked with me on clients, and he's just a fantastic human being. I like Rick a lot. But Rick, we were talking the other day and talking about how does authenticity grow through sport, and how does it, you know, how has the concussion piece, what impact has that had on you? Because you were the one that actually came up with, well, there's social authenticity, which is, you know, how I deal with the sports, or how I dealt with the sports part, and then there's the personal side.
Well, you know, I think Mark and Marcus and I have something very in common about how we deal with our sports when we transfer to our real world or a different world, how real we are with ourselves and how we embrace the world. There's some phony worlds, I think, that we meet, and how we manage all that, sometimes being the point of attention. And you know, without digressing, I can just remember joining the corporate world and needing to adapt what I learned in football, the disciplines that Mark and Marcus learned in their wonderful careers to be as successful as they are, how to transfer that and to be legitimate and to be who I am. that was a really a challenge for me. It was just a new change, like changing positions on a football field. But the concussion piece, the other side of that question, what the concussion piece gave for me is that I am early onset dementia. I have been for 10 years, but I have been that way for a long time, and I've managed it unknowing. And it was very insightful for me to discover more about who I am and the adjustments I've been making to having a bad memory most of my life on short term, and to have some other interference from temperament issues. I have to manage myself, and that translated into the training room. And so when I discovered this and went on a journey to see how I'd responded to it, I learned a lot about myself. I learned just how I've made adjustments to accommodate issues that were impairing me. And it's part of, just, I wasn't big at play football, so I had to do something to compensate for it. So I've been compensating. I think that's part of what authenticity is. I don't think it's a thing that we have that's stable. I think it's a constant in our life that we're constantly trying to be as authentic and as real as we can. And I just find that the more we are, the better I am in a training room doing PPI, the more authentic I am. And I learned that playing football.
Wow. I have a teammate who saw the marketing material for this particular show. We played football together in college for 4 years, and he commented on the Facebook marketing piece, and he said, man, I wish I would have been more authentic in school, because I carried around being gay, but no one else knew. I didn't come out until I graduated. And I didn't have a clue. He played wide receiver. I played defensive back. We went up against each other every day and became really good friends. And for him to comment on that Facebook piece saying, I wish I would have been stronger when I was in school. And I could connect with him around race, because I wish I would have said more when I was in school, and I did not. So my question to any of you, has there been a change in your level of authenticity when you played sports to now? Or did you pretty much show up the same way then as you do today? And that's with your coaches, with your teammates, with the media, whomever. Who wants to take that one on?
I'll take that, Doc. That's a great question. That's a great question. And the reason why is because, when I played, I'm gonna say I lacked athleticism. That's a nice way to say it. so I wasn't the fastest. I couldn't jump, but I had grit. I had an enormous amount of grit. And my thing was, a good friend of mine who's now the coach at Temple named Aaron McKee, he gave me the nickname the Jackal. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, you Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. So when people would see me off the court, oh man, it's a great guy. He's a nice guy, very personable, very approachable. On the court, he said I was a maniac. So being authentic was, I felt as though as my playing career went on, I had to have an edge to push me to outwork my opponent, to outgrit my opponent. But that wasn't who I really was.
Wow.
It was plenty of times in my playing career that I would come off the court and leave, and a kid would want to ask for my autograph. And I remember like it's yesterday. This happened more than once. My parent would be like, no. He's angry. No, he's mean. And I think later in my career in the NBA, as I would say, when I got to the Hornets, at that time it was the New Orleans Hornets, I started to make a change where I stopped playing as passionate, stopped playing as more intense, because I wanted to be approachable off the court. And did I say it hurt the way I played? I don't know if I can say that, but I really believe I became more aware of being more authentic on and off the court to who I truly was.
Wow.
So I have to credit that to that.
So Mark, I have a question for you. How stressful was that for you to be somebody that you don't feel you really were? I mean, you felt like you had to outplay, and obviously, you know, it was a learning process for you in terms of how do I, as Mark, engage in that sport. But were you exhausted like after every game?
Absolutely, because it takes a lot of hard work to put on a facade.
Wow.
So after every game, I'm really tired. But after I got later on in my career, I realized that I wasn't necessarily physically tired. I was emotionally drained from playing at an elite level as hard as I possibly could, but also playing with a level of intensity that might have been borderline psychotic, you know, to carry on. So I wasn't just emotionally drained, physically drained, I was emotionally drained as well.
Yeah.
Wow. Marcus, how about you? Because you and I have talked, and you pretty much say, I am who I am, I've been who I am, I'm going to stay who I am. Has that always been the case with sports? And then I want Sherri to talk to you about the leader-follower relationship, authenticity relative to you and the coach, and being 100 and how that works out.
So, Jim, first of all, you know, Marc Jackson doesn't know this, but I always saw him as one of the hardest working players in the NBA when he was there. He wasn't the most athletic, but he always out hustled and outworked whoever he went up against. So I always had and I'm a person who puts a lot of value in hard work. In terms of me, basketball gave me my confidence. I was, you know, I grew up, like I was the person, when I went to HBCU, for those of you who don't know, that's a historically Black college and university. And so I came from this place that was mostly white, southern, rural town to going to this all Black college. And I had this coach who was what I thought to be one of the meanest people ever. And he was so hard, but he was just a man. And I didn't have a father figure in my life other than my grandfather, but I didn't grow up with a dad. And so it was really difficult for me in my first year to get close to this guy. Now he's like my father. He's been mentoring me for 26 years now. But he said to me, and I was always the hardest worker on the team. I always, like during conditioning, practice, game, I was going to outwork who was ever in front of me. And he came to me my sophomore year and said, I need you to be a captain. I said, okay, I don't have a problem being a captain. He said, well, you know, a captain, you got to speak up in practice. We went to a religious school. We had to go to church every Sunday. He wanted me to speak at church, and we had chapel on Wednesday. He wanted me to speak. And I was like, Coach, that's not what I do. I lead by example. I don't talk. I don't do that. And he said, well, you're going to do that today. And he proceeded to put me in every situation he could to speak in front of people. I am so thankful to him today that he made me speak in front of people, because my greatest phobia was speaking in front of people. Wow. And then from there, as I began to get better in basketball, my personality on the court was this hard-working guy, but I always had fun. Even against the guy, I was always talk trash, right? But I always talk trash in like a fun way. Like I want your best, right? And so in order for me to get your best, I got to antagonize you. But I'm not going to be elbowing you in the face. I'm not going to do all that stuff. But I am going to talk some stuff, right? And I always smiled. And I remember people in college, and even when I played pro ball, fans would come up to me after the game and say, you look like you're having so much fun. And people gravitated to me after games. And so a little bit of a contrast to what Mark said, for me, after games, I had to calm down. Like I had this emotional high, and I had to figure out, how am I going to come off of that cliff? Because now I'm so hyped, because I've got the energy of 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 people in the arena. and I'm bringing all that into me. Like, it's like one of those Avengers superhero. I'm bringing all your power and I'm gonna use it against you, right? So that translated into my work environment, particularly as I began to go into leadership, and this thing where I was an action-oriented leader, and I would never ask people to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And I always had what I call myself, I'm a relentless optimist. Like, I always see the positive in whatever it is. And I read this book, and then I know, Sherri, you have a question for me. I read this book called The Go-Giver, and Jim, you and I have talked about this book.
Yeah.
And in this book, I read it about 12 years ago. It talks about the 5 stratospheric laws of success. And one of those stratospheric laws of success is the law of authenticity. And the law of authenticity states that the greatest gift you can give someone is yourself. And so from that book and from that law, it reinforced for me what I was already living, but it elevated it, it enhanced it. And so as we are dealing with the racial tension in this country, as we're dealing with the fact that, you know, we have this negative perspective many times of Black men, Jim knows this, I stand in my truth. And one thing you're gonna know is you're dealing with a Black man, a proud Black man, who is all about how do we uplift Black folks and brown folks, because we know those are 2 communities that are devastated in this country. And so the authenticity and the confidence on the court translated that into the leadership that I have today.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned leadership. Sherri, can you talk a little bit about the leader-follower relationship so we can then talk about the authenticity between the coach and the player?
Well, just before that, I just want to acknowledge that Rick and Mark and Marcus, I'm so touched by your stories, who you are. I mean, I feel your authenticity just blazing through, you know, as we're talking. So thank you for who you are and what you've been sharing. And one of the things, I spent quite a bit of time researching, looking at the relationship between leaders and followers. And I guess one of the interesting things to think about, and there's a piece called Implicit Social Elements, which I know is probably too much detail, but it looks at things like fairness, empathy, respect, self-control, all of those kinds of things. And when you look back at your careers and how you had relationships with different coaches, because obviously there's different levels of coaching and that kind of thing, what happened to people as they came in, you know, into, like, you know, the being professional ball players, whether it's football or basketball? What happened in those relationships? Were people overall authentic, or did you see a lot of difference in how people handled, you know, getting into, you know, professional sports? And Rick, why don't we go to you? You can go ahead and grab that one first.
Well, first, I just really appreciate listening to Mark and Marcus share. I can identify and just grateful. I'm with you, Sherri, to listen to their stories and as authentic as honest. I hear both of them, both you guys. And my best answer to that is to spin off something Mark said. And Mark described working hard and gritty and doing all that stuff. So I don't identify with that at all. My authenticity in playing football is I never liked the sport. I never felt like I belonged, and I never worked at it. I never lifted a weight. I never worked out in the off season of 8 years professional football, except for 2 weeks before I showed up. I'd be in the huddle and I didn't really care. I look across at the guys and I see them beating the crap out of each other, and I'd say, why would you do that?
Wow.
And I'd run out and I'd go to my wide receiver spot and do what I love to do. To this day, I identify with Marcus when he says how he loves being in that stadium, 10,000 people watching and it's on him. I love that. It's a place that is so special to me because I've been there in my own little world. And I did what my gifts were, but it wasn't football. It was catching a pass. It was playing a game as a kid. And then football became a business. And I love football to this day. What I did is, as a participant, I don't like the business of football. I don't watch it. I don't care about it. And I have more pain from the people that I've met that went through it, that are dead today, that I pick up at the airport because they can't find their way home. And I love that in the conflict. So when I go out, Sherri, to answer your question, when I go out and I meet the world, and I played, and they have no clue. They have this invented reality about what it was. They have no truth about what it is. And so do I fake it? Yeah, great, football, tell them a story. I told so many phony stories, you know? Then you embrace people that signal to you that they're authentic. You can tell them the truth. And you just manage that in some way. You manage it in your corporate life. You manage it. And I don't always think I managed it well. I have people that really know how I feel about it, and actually sharing what I feel about it now, that how I manage my relationship with people when they want to talk football. My wife doesn't know anything about football, and I love her for that. And it's always a challenge, but I don't know if you want the specific details on how I do it, but it is a challenge. It's a world that's so special to me, but it's a world that hurt me tremendously. And it's a world that I'm so proud of. There's this conflict, and then how to be authenticity through it is a shifting situational thing. I don't have any real answers. I don't want to monopolize this, but I just got to say something to Marcus. He said something about race. How authentic am I as I compare myself to these two gentlemen? I have an NFL pension. I played in the NFL. I have 8 years of professional football. And I wouldn't have one day in the NFL if it wasn't for racism. I never competed against a black wide receiver except once in my life. I went to a segregated college. Alabama didn't have black receivers. LSU. I played the East-West game, college all-star games. No black wide receivers. I played football when the deck had no black cards in it, only red. Wow. And today I stand here as an authentic person saying I played in the NFL. I was a marginal player. If it was a level playing field, I would not be on this program as an NFL retired player. And how legitimate am I every day I go out and somebody wants to talk about my great NFL career, how wonderful I am, when it cheated me out of the opportunity to find how good I am. I don't know, because I never competed at the highest level I used to think I did. It was a lie.
Wow.
So how do I embrace the world today? I don't know how I embrace the world today. I just tell them the truth and get in trouble.
Mark, I saw you raise your hand for a second, then Marcus commented. You guys want to continue the conversation?
Absolutely. Mark, you want to go first?
You good.
Well, first of all, Rick, man, I got to tell you, man, you one of the coldest white dudes I know. That's first and foremost, my brother. I love you. I love you virtually. All right.
I'll take that. I need all the love I can get.
You're cold, brother. Like for me, I just think that, and I think we feel the same way here, Rick. When I look at Mark went to Temple University, and for me, Temple was a behemoth of a basketball a dynasty in my mind, with him and Aaron and Rick and all those guys they had. And so, I went to not only an HBCU, I went to one of the smallest HBCUs, 900 students, and then it was a religious HBCU, right? And so, and we had no facilities. And so when I was able to, achieve some of the stuff I achieved at the college level, I ended up going to these different, and Mark knows this journey, you go to, you play in the CBA, and you play in the USBL, and you play, you go to these different free agent camps and all of that stuff. And then you get invited to Denver Nuggets, and then I'm there, and that's year, I'm sure Mark remember, Rodney Rogers was there, and Matumbo, and all these guys who I only watched play. And then we had Big Dan Issel as the coach. And so
I remember him.
Yeah, Big Dan, a tough dude, right? 6'9", got his teeth knocked out in the game and kept playing. That guy.
Picked him up, gave him to the trainer.
Absolutely, right, exactly. And so I am instantly bottom of the barrel, right? I'm not going to get attention from that coach, right? And then leave there and go to other teams. I'm not going to get the type of attention that I got from my college coach and my high school coach, because I didn't go to the Duke, the North Carolinas, and all of that stuff. And so for me, there was always, to your point, Rick, I felt the business. I love the pure sport of basketball. I hated the business of basketball. And particularly as a Black man, feeling like you're on this meat market. So every day, Mark knows this, when you're overseas, particularly, every day in places like Argentina, you break a thumbnail, they got another Black dude coming in, bigger, better, stronger than you are, waiting to take you out, right? And so, it began to weigh on me, and I found myself not enjoying it, even though, of course, I'm getting paid great money to play, but I was slowly losing my passion for basketball. Therefore, like you, Rick, I didn't want to feel like an imposter. And I think we experienced this imposter syndrome in the business place as well. And so I decided that I could not be, and also my body was beginning to give on me. I at that point had 3 surgeries, and I'm getting to feel my age, and I was only 28, maybe 29. I began to feel old as a player, and it was old physically, and also the routine was getting old. And so my coaches, I didn't feel as embraced by my coaches anymore, and I was no longer viewed in some jobs as the leader. And someone had asked a question, I think Amanda asked, about not everyone is meant to be a leader. And I would just change that a little bit and say, I think everyone is a leader, but not in all situations. And I was told a long time ago that the best leaders at some point had to be the best followers. And if you can't be a great follower, then in my mind, you can't be a great leader, because you have to be able to put your mindset in that of the people that you're trying to lead. And so, and for me, going back to authenticity, but also, and I just said this to my staff on Monday, I said, I was always told, you can't lead us if you don't love us, right? And love, in my opinion, is about proximity and how close we get to the people that we are leading, whether it's a team, whether it is a company, a department. And so my authenticity comes from wanting to get to know on the court, both my teammates and the people I'm going against. And in business, getting to know my employees and all of my stakeholders, right? And making sure they have access to me and who I really am. And that has been the difference for me, Jim.
That's awesome.
I like that. Very nice.
Listen, you gentlemen, Rick, Marcus, I mean, I'm listening to you now, and I just don't want to say nothing. I just want to keep listening. I really do. I'm just telling the truth. Like, Rick, your stories and your the way you just put it out there, like, this artifacts, this is how I feel. A lot of players or former players wouldn't say that.
Right.
You know, we couldn't be honest with it. Oh, well, I'm only here for you to come out and say that, Rick. I mean, that's unbelievable. Thank you for sharing that. You know, we talk about the business, we talk about things. I think I don't know if anybody experienced this. I laugh because I might be the first NBA player that that an agent fired. Like, listen, normally as players, we fire agents. I might be the first player that the agent said, man, you fired. Well, I quit. Well, I'm firing myself. Like, for example, like I said, my way out, Rick said he didn't work out. He didn't like the game. He only trained in the off season 2 weeks before the season. For me, growing up, I feel as though I had nothing else. I didn't want to do anything else. I lived in a gym. I am the poster board where being at the right place at the right time. 2 different instances growing up before I reached 16 years old that I was supposed to be hanging out with a group of friends that I was not with them. I was on a basketball court and all those friends were killed. 2 different occasions this happened.
Wow.
One when I was 13 and one when I was 15. I was supposed to be hanging out with a group of friends, not doing nothing crazy, just hanging out, standing on a certain situation, sitting on a certain step, that those guys were killed. And because I was on the basketball court, I was not with them, and they all were killed. 2 different occasions.
Wow.
So that was, once again, basketball was more than a game. It started young in me that basketball was more than a game. When I was drafted, so I was predicted to go first round, to go lottery. I got hurt during my first workout for the Atlanta Hawks. I got hurt, nothing major, got a contusion in my quad. I was out for like 2 weeks, couldn't train. So my stock fell. So I told my agent, I was invited to the green room. You could come to the green room to be drafted, but they said, as more information comes in, we see a stock falling. So I decided to stay home with my family. I stayed home with my mother, my God family, and friends. I told my agent, I said, I don't care where I play. I don't have to be in the NBA. I want to go to the highest bidder. He said, what do you mean? I want to go to the highest bidder. So when the last pick in the first round, who's now a good friend of mine, John Thomas from the University of Minnesota, was the last pick taken in the first round to the New York Knicks in a 1997 NBA draft. I had a bidding war going on my agent's phone with a team called Cheska from Russia, Milan from Italy, Maccabi Tel Aviv from Israel,
Wow.
and 2 teams from Turkey, one called Efes Pilsen, one called Tofaş Bursa. Before my name was taken in the second round in the NBA draft, the number 6 pick by the Golden State Warriors, I had already signed a contract to go play for a team in Turkey called Tofaş. At that point, back then was the largest European deal ever for a player that never played an NBA game. So when Golden State drafted me, I have PJ Carlissimo, Gary St., who's the coach, Gary St. Jean, who's the general manager, call me on my phone and say, call me on my mother's house phone and say, Mark, we can't wait to get you in camp. I said, fellas, I'm sorry, but I'm going to Turkey. What do you mean you're going to Turkey? I signed a deal to go to Turkey. So what do you mean you signed a deal? I said, listen, fellas, to me, it's not about playing the NBA. To me, it's about playing the basketball. And if I get paid the highest deal to go overseas, then I'm going to do it. And he said, what do you mean with the NBA? I said, and it's still basketball. And I'll never forget this. Gary St. Jean, who was the general manager, said, how much is your deal? And I told him, he said, good luck, fella. So I went to Turkey, played in Turkey, played for 3 years, finally went to the NBA, did all that, did the NBA. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I signed, after my first year, I signed a big 7-year deal in the NBA back then, which is like what a lot of guys making 1 year now. I signed it for 7 years. When that contract was up, I had 4 offers. At that point, the highest out of those offers was to go to Cleveland. They're pretty much to be a veteran on a team, the AKA be LeBron James' bodyguard on the court. That's what it was for. And it was for 7 figures, but I chose to go back to Europe. I chose to go to a team called Olympiakos in Greece. Because what I learned early in my career, NBA was fun because it was the NBA, the glamour, the hype, all that. But I felt more at home in Europe because when I went to Europe, my grandfather, who was a former at Fordham Wars, was an Army veteran. He said, go to Europe and get lost. Don't go to Europe and hang with the Americans. Embrace the European culture, or wherever you're at, embrace their culture. And I did that early in my first 3 years in Turkey and in Spain before I set foot in the NBA. When I got to the NBA, it was a business. Like, I don't like this too much. I like the playing, but it was a business. We call politics, and it had to do with politics, meaning in the NBA, not necessarily the best players play. They have to fulfill their quota to play certain players, certain minutes, because it was good for the NBA brand. And that was different for me. In Europe, best players played. Best players played. So after my big deal was done, I chose to go back to Europe because I felt at home. I felt more of a family atmosphere, not necessarily in the locker room, but just in the cities I played.
Yeah.
Not necessarily on the court, but in the culture of the cities I was playing. My second year I played in Spain, a small town called Cantabria in Spain, where it was a small town called Santander, where there was 30,000 people in the town. For an entire season, I never ate in my house.
Wow.
I ate at strangers' homes. They would see me walking down the street. Hey, Mr. Jackson, come have dinner with me and my family. Okay, why not? So I embraced the culture for a whole season. I never ate in my home. I never ate at the same home more than once. I just went and sat and broke bread with strangers who were fans of me on the basketball court. So when I got to the NBA, I was like, it was different. Once that game is over, everybody's go their separate ways.
Right.
I embraced the European lifestyle more, the Spanish lifestyle more, because it's more of a family atmosphere. So when I chose to go to Olympiakos instead of sign that 7-figure deal with Cleveland Cavaliers, my agent said, what are you doing? I said, man, I just want to go back to Europe. He said, what you mean? You got a chance to play with the upcoming rising star, upcoming team. I said, yeah, if they pretty much hire me to be an enforcer, to be a bodyguard, to be for a young guy, instead of going to Europe. I said, no, I'm going to Europe. He said, man, I can't take that. I quit.
He quit.
Pretty much he fired me as an agent, he said, I quit. It's like, okay, there's more commission in my pocket. So I went to Olympiakos and embraced that whole atmosphere and did that. So the authenticity of what they expect from you, what they expect you to do, as opposed to where do you feel comfortable at? So
Good.
I shared that story.
That's good. Sin, I see you on come up questions out there.
First of all, you all are getting all kinds of love from the chat room. People are appreciating the fact that you are being authentic right here and now with us. And that's a connection that you're forging with all the people, with not only with each other, but all the people that are on here. So from my heart, thank you all so much for being real here. We've got about 7 minutes left, so I'd like each of you to take 2 minutes just to wrap it up. And Rick, there was a special question for you. I know we could probably take more than 2 minutes to talk about it, about how did PPI have a bigger, the Positive Power and Influence program have a bigger impact on you than your sporting career? And Marcus, how do you continue to be authentic today in what you're doing? How do you bring that to the forefront? So I'm going to leave you all with that. We've got, about 2 minutes each. Thanks.
Who wants
Rick.
to?
I think Rick.
Well, I'll take as fast as I can. Football's a real physical game. You play it, it's a sport, you get at it. And we're young and we're learning. And as life goes along, you find things that you're not good at. And you're forced to do something better. And I had a career, I taught college, I did different stuff, mediator, negotiations. And when I got into Positive Power and Influence, I realized I wasn't very good at it. I could be a lot better. And so today, what it does for me is when I got into this, a guy hired me and said, I want you to go do what you do on a football field as a coach and a player, but I want you to do it in a training room. And I look at it that way. I go in, and the first thing I do is try to create a safe place to learn and make everybody in there a leader. And I have the way that I run the class. Sherri would fire me if she knew what I did. And it's probably some of the most times I'm most open and as clear as I can be about who I am. If I want them to change their influence, I'm as transparent in my learning from when I described I wasn't good, and then how I learned, and I want them to have the same wonderful experience it did for me, for them. And in that way, I feel I'm in those moments I'm training there, I'm as real and legitimate as I can be and transparent when I stand in front of people and I teach Positive Power and Influence, because I'm in control and trainers need control. And I get to control that openness, and I lead with my own vulnerability and my own weakness and help them see what I do right and how I got there. And that's a special place for me. I never had that in football. I always had to be the best. I always had to be something else. I was always a product, a price on the head. By the way, I signed for 4 figures.
Wow.
And I took too long, but that's a special place for me. I can be real there. And I think that's why I'm really good at it.
Thank you. Thank you. Marcus?
For me, what I choose to do now is I know sports is not everything, but I am the poster child for it saves lives. So what I do is I like to bring the next generation up to let them know that as long as you stay focused, as long as you push toward a dream, anything is possible. Mm. So my goal is now is just to bring up the next generation, my own children and other children, and tell people my story because I think it's important to understand.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice assist to this power forward.
I'll say, you know, just piggybacking on what Mark said. Like, you know, I think if it wasn't for sports, well, first, before I go there, I just want to give a just special shout out to Rick and Mark. It's been just a pleasure to serve on the panel with two real people, authentic, you know, and not just about them playing sports, but just they're real, genuine people. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to do that, Jim and Sherri and Cynthia, for inviting us on. I think if it were not for sports, we already have racial issues in this country, but I can't imagine what the racial issues would be if we didn't have sports. And I think sports is a great tool to bridge gaps, build understanding, allow people to be authentic. It builds confidence. And so I'm always a person who's trying to push every young person I know to get involved in some sport, whether you're good at it or not, it really doesn't matter to me. Sure. Just get involved in something that forces you to fail at something often so that you can get used to failing. And I also think that sports for me is giving me this optimistic notion that we can solve racism. Jane Elliott, a white woman who's done a lot around race relations. If you probably recall when she did the brown-eyed, blue-eyed experiment back in the 60s, she once said that she believes that we could solve racism. Like we could actually end racism in the next 30 years. And she believes that we could do that by starting with our young folks. 4, 3, 4, 5-year-old kids who don't see color, who haven't been jaded by all of these things that many of us have seen in life. And so my authenticity has been, how do I work towards using my platform wherever I am with whatever I got to try to solve these issues for our next generation. So thank you all for coming on and joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Sherri, I'm passing the ball to you. Catch it.
Oh my.
Bring us home. I see your mind just taking it all in. The wheels are turning.
Yeah, I'm so touched by your stories, who you are. I mean, I said that earlier. I know I'm repeating myself, but this was very powerful. And I think, you know, the honesty and the forthrightness that everybody has, it's like holding this space. And so I love how you guys came into this and did this. So thank you so much. And I wish you the best.
Thank you, Jim, Sherri,
never stop
Marcus. I hope I see you guys again someday.
I'm sure you will. And Jim, thank you. And Sherri, I know this is authentic because we didn't get any notes, no questions, nothing. So this was.
We didn't even know how to get on the log on.
Blame me because some folks condescended your way. I'm like, nope.
Yeah, I just say one thing at the end.
Yeah.
You know, when I train PPI and I do it, I'm no different in that classroom than I am right now. None. They know me right now as you know me. And that's what I love about it. I love that connection and watch it change and help people. And it's a little world I really enjoy. Thank you, SNS, and all the other people who trained it.
Yeah, thank you.
And all the other people who taught me how to train it.
Yeah, there's a long list of good folks.
Well, we knew this 60 minutes were going to fly by, and they have. I've learned a lot as well. I can't wait to use what I've learned. Thank you for the stories. Thank you for the authenticity. And Mark, I'm gonna follow up with you. I got some media questions about authenticity because I know that's a whole nother conversation. But again, everyone enjoy the rest of your day. Sherri, I'm sure we want them to take care and be safe. And until next week.
See you soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Mark,
everyone.
Marcus,
Thank
take care.
you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.